Today's presentation is going to be short, however, important, and it'll have a bunch of information for you that we think at GAOR it will affect, and it can help your presentations and your work with your clients and controlling expectations and so forth. So the first topic that we are going to be speaking about is expectations, is the context, and is the perspective that you can provide for your clients. And I borrowed a slide from CAR market forecast from for 2023. I think you'll enjoy that. Then we are going to be again talking about the interest rate tool. This is one of the tools that I use in advocacy, and whoever that I've introduced this tool to has enjoyed it and has used, in fact, to tempt expectations and providing perspective and context to their clients. There is an additional tool that I want to share with you that can be used in conjunction with the interest rate tool, and that's called the down payment assistance tool. I'll show you the links at the CAR.org and how you can access it and how you can use it to find down payment assistance for your clients, first-time buyers, and what have you. Remember, CAR got involved, supported, and as a result of the legislators passed a law providing $500 million in down payment assistance for the first-time buyers. Now, a first-time buyer is defined as somebody that has not owned a property for the past 3 years. So your client could have owned the property 10 years ago, sold it 5 years ago, but since they haven't owned property in 3 years, the past 3 years, they will qualify for that. And then I'm going to give you a bit of good political news in the upcoming 2024 elections that I think you would appreciate. Again, the work that realtors and their coalitions do in the arena of organized real estate. The recipe for success, this is borrowed from CAR market forecast. It involves the buyers and the sellers and how to actually help them to temper their expectations. Today, for example, for buyers, we know the rates are up, purchasing power is down, economic uncertainty, and what have you. But on the positive side, you have less competitive market, you have more homes for sale, long-term ownership benefit, and it's not, folks, I want to repeat, this is not 2008. So it's quite different. On the other side, for the sellers, you can actually let them know that there are less or fewer buyers in the market, and homes are sitting for a longer time in the market, and there is more discounting and concessions going on. And again, on the positive side, it's still a good market. We were just spoiled, homes still selling fast, relatively fast, and many selling over list as we speak. Now, what I'd like to do now is to go to the two tools that I spoke about. The first one was, and we have shared this with you, is, and let me see if I can open up my, make it larger for you. There we go. The first one, as we talked about, was the interest rate tool that you can actually choose a county, for example, right? Select an annual income, put a down payment and down payment percentage, select a desired monthly income, loan rate, and what have you, and it'll give you what is available as far as price is concerned in the different cities in the county of Los Angeles. So when you use this with your buyer, and your buyer wants, for example, to buy something at around $420,000 in Burbank or in Glendale, you can show them that in Lancaster, there's only about 168 properties that are around the same price, but in Glendale, Bell Gardens, and what have you, there is none. So this is the way it's reality meeting expectations that a realtor can use. And we have shared this with you again at GAOR. We've used this as an advocacy in promoting ownership versus rental in Glendale that we will be talking about plenty more next year. The next one that I want to share with you, and this is a new one that I think you will enjoy, is the down payment assistance resource in GAOR website. Folks, you can go here and I will be providing the links for you, right, as we speak. And you can enter, for example, City of Glendale, right? And it will give you 24 different programs that will match the down payment or actually come up with a down payment for your client in their next purchase, right? And if you click on the view programs, what you will see is a drop-down list of all the resources from California Housing Finance Agency, Cal FHA, and onward. So there's 24 of them available in City of Glendale or for City of Glendale. And by the way, these have taken into consideration the maximum loan amount that, I'm sorry, the maximum purchase price, which is, I believe, if I'm not wrong, about $970,000 and $800 in Los Angeles County. In 2023, that will go up to about $1,073,000, by the way, just for your information. So this will provide you with all of the resources that you can apply and or look through for your buyer. Let's go to the first one, Cal HFA, right? And if you press on that, now it tells you what the programs are, right? What your buyer needs to do, the buyer education form and so forth, where to fill out the forms and apply for the loan. Again, the idea of using this tool, which is a down payment assistance tool, that actually finds out, is compiled every source, and there are about maybe about 400 sources in the state of California, and using this alongside with the interest rate tool, I think it will give you a great opportunity in whether it's taking a listing from your seller and or trying to manage the expectations of a buyer in today's market, right? And so now I'm going to go back to the sharing end of it and to our presentation. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut through with this. I'm just getting a lot of messages as we talk about this stuff. So we talked about, let's see. We talked about the context and expectations and so forth. And these are the links that I will be posting in your chat boxes for these two tools that I think you will be enjoying. You will enjoy using it. A bit of good news. Back in 2017, I'm providing this context for you so you know what I'm talking about. There was a decision by the Supreme Court of California, and that had to do for the city of Upland versus one coalition or other, that had to do with taxation of marijuana sales in the city of Upland. The Supreme Court ruled that if an initiative is put on the ballot, not by the legislators, but by a private or a nonprofit group, then it does not need, again, I repeat, it does not need 3/4 of voters vote in order to pass that initiative, especially if that has to do with increasing taxes on the voters and so forth. Now, just to give you an example, ULA in city of Los Angeles, the transfer tax, was not put on the ballot by the legislators. So all it needed was a 50% threshold plus one to win the ballot, or to actually have the ballot measure become the law in 2023. And that's exactly what is happening as we speak. And it's the yeses have it, and that is supposed to use to help create $600 to $900 million a year for homelessness and initiatives for homelessness and building apartments and shelters and so forth for the homeless and those that are less fortunate than us. But that passed or will pass by 50% plus vote. Now, California Business Properties Association considered this as an assault on Prop 13. And so does CAR, by the way, right? So now they have an initiative that they have qualified for the ballot in 2024 that you cannot every time lift. It was another example, Prop 31. You cannot every time that you wish to go ahead and put an initiative by a private group or a nonprofit in order to add taxes on the voters and the residents of state of California. This initiative is called the Taxpayer Protection Act, and that will be on the ballot in 2024. Spread the word for this. We need the support that we will get. We need to get from you, and it's very, very important. This way, this is another layer of protection for Prop 13, so nobody else can poke holes in this very important law that was passed in 1976-77 by the taxpayers of state of California. And with that, I just want to wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving on behalf of David, myself, staff, your president, your executive team, your board of directors. We are, all of us are thankful for you. We know how important you are to our association, and especially you that attend these meetings week in and week out, the ambassadors of this association, the magnificent ambassadors of this great association. We know without you, this association cannot thrive, and we do know that with you, this association will do very, very well as we go forward. With that, Mr. President, that ends my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And I mean that. Thank you. You're very thankful. We have a couple of questions for you. I think the first one's from Ira. Ira?
Thank you. Good morning, Greg. In that pricing tool, I noticed that the date for the inventory of properties was October 22nd. I know when I've gone online and played with it, the date seems to be somewhat back. Do we know how often that is updated?
I don't, but I'll find out for you and let you know.
Because, I mean, it's almost a month old now. So, I mean, I like the tool. I've even shared it with my office. And I've had people comment that they like it too, but I noticed that particular date might, without knowing how often it changes, might discourage people if the data they're looking at is old. But that's my only question. But otherwise, I thanks for sharing that, because it is a great tool.
I agree.
Yes, I believe they do this on a monthly basis, and so we've got October's numbers. We certainly won't have November's right now. Rick, you are on mute. There you go.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Greg. What a great presentation. We are using that interest rate program, and it works. It is fantastic. So I encourage everybody to get familiarized with it. Just wanted to ask you to give us a little bit of an update on Pasadena's rent control and measure, ballot measure ULA. I think this is going to affect our business tremendously for those that are selling in Pasadena, and also $5 million and above houses.
Yeah, and thank you for the question and for the comment about the interest rate tool. Pasadena Measure Edge, which is the rent control measure in Pasadena, though we don't have all of the count yet, but there is no questions that it will pass. And I believe by a margin of 53, 54 to about 46, 45 or something like that. So pretty soon we will have rent control next door to us. In fact, we are in conversations with Burbank about it as well. As far as the measure ULA is concerned, and that is the transfer tax, the problem with that was the polling as they went in it showed that it had a very strong stance and liking amongst voters. Again, the context is important. You know, the city of Los Angeles has got 30, 40, 50,000 homeless, and no administration has addressed it in a real manner. ULA was going to and is going to generate anywhere between 600 million to 900 million dollars, and this is going to give the new mayor Karen Bass a treasure trove of tools that she can use to at least alleviate, eliminate, or reduce homelessness by a great deal. ULA, Rick, will pass. Again, the difference is 53, 54 to about 42, 43. Now, another deleterious measure was from San Francisco, and that was Measure M. That is the vacancy tax, and that has also passed. So the combination of these three has got to put us all on notice. So we understand that because we believe rent control is not the answer to homelessness, and neither is vacancy tax, and none of these do anything to add inventory to the really dirt of inventory that we have for sale, so to say, right? And the affordability end of it. The reason that I apologize, carrying on with this thing. The reason that I brought up that down payment assistance tool and the sources that are available on it is because we know traditionally one of the problems, or the most important problem, especially for a first-time buyer or a buyer in general, has been the down payment, along with the lack of inventory. Now, of course, now interest rates are higher, so affordability is lower and what have you. But I think, back in 1991, 1992, and you will remember this very well, the interest rates were at around 7%. Yet the business was being conducted. There were a lot of buy-down programs, but we did not have the assistance programs that we have that I shared with you today on CAR.org. And I think that will be a tremendous help as we go forward, because I don't believe that the interest rates will drop anytime soon. Eventually they will, but that's what I have to say about that. So ULA has passed, and Prop Edge has passed in Pasadena.
Just wanted to know, like, ULA, it affects City of LA or County of LA, for everybody to be clear. And number two, how much is it? And then Pasadena's rent control. How much can a landlord increase the rent on an annual basis?
So let's take your last question first. Pasadena, the way that I've read the ordinance, says the following. If your CPI this year is at 7%, and next year, for example, is going to be at 7.5%, that 0.5% is what you can increase as a landlord on your price. It is really exorbitant, and it's not even CPI. The rent control is set at 3%, by the way, in Pasadena. So, and by the way, that has nothing to do with the vacant units, right? If a unit becomes vacant in Pasadena or anywhere else because of Ellis Act and the rest of the protections that exist, you can go to the market, right? But as we've seen in New York and other places, if you are sitting, or Santa Monica in that manner, in a unit that has got a market value of $3,000 a month and you're only paying $900 a month, why would you want to buy a house? You will stay in that unit and you will be saving a lot of money as you go forward. It is not a Los Angeles County measure, albeit we have to be very, very careful now, right? Because you never know. Burbank has not had for example, a rent control measure. And in fact, right now with the Burbank election, you have 3 left-leaning candidates that won, or actually 2 that won, joining the one that was on the city council. And it's my understanding, as far as the intelligence that I've gathered, they're all for rent control. So we have to be cognizant of that. This fight is going to continue on. And we've done a good job in the city of Glendale. And I've repeatedly shared this with the board of directors so far, because we took the middle ground, because of you, Rick, and your board of directors at the time. We were able to have a tenant protection plan in place with a rent cap, as opposed to a dead-on rent control. And I know a lot of people say a control is a control, it's an artificial deal. But, the days that we could have turned around and say, you know what, rent control is bad, economists on both sides of the aisle say that it's bad, we should never have it, doesn't cut it anymore. You better have solutions, as we did in the city of Glendale. And that may tempt the desire to institute a stronger rent control, a more restrictive rent control to a certain degree in the city of Glendale. But again, we have to be on our toes, be ready, be vigilant.
Thank you, Greg.
So
Go ahead. Rick.
is it okay? So ULA affects only city of LA, not the
Yes.
county of LA.
Yes,
Okay.
but it affects all properties, right? Commercial as well as single-family homes. In fact, a lot of commercial brokers right now in Los Angeles are suggesting to their clients that this is the time, if you've considered selling, to get out of it, because ULA will take effect in April 1st, 2023.
And how much will they charge?
For up to for properties between 5 and 10 is 4.5%. Over 10 is 5%.
Wow. Over 10 is 5%, 4.5% and 5%, over 10 million. And the Pasadena,
that's above the current.
allow me to finish. Allow me to finish my questions, Ira. You're more than welcome to jump in anytime afterwards. Okay, and the on rent control in Pasadena. So if the CPI is 7%, next year is 7.5%, you increase only 0.5% or 3.5%?
No, 0.5%. Your rent control is at 3%, right? However, if your CPI, the rent increase, not the rent control at 3%, but the rent increase is set at the difference between the two CPIs between the 2 years. And that's problematic, by the way. Watch out, because I think there'll be certain lawsuits on this thing, because the measure is not clear on a couple of 2 or 3 things. One of them is exactly what you're referring to. So if the increase in the CPI has been 0.5%, right? That's what you can increase on your rent, not the CPI itself. But you already have a cap of 3% anyways.
And if the CPI is negative?
And that's one of the issues, right? Now, if the CPI is negative, what will happen? Obviously, the rent is not going to drop. So the ordinance language doesn't say anything about the drop of rent. The ordinance language addresses the increase in rent. So I hope it does not mean that you have to reduce your rent because CPI has been negative. I don't believe that will happen.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rick. Ira, you had a question or a comment, and then we're going to move on.
On the ULA, that's over and above the current transfer tax, right? So
exactly
4.5% plus the new numbers.
No. It's 4.5% and 5%. It's not over and above the transfer. I think the transfer tax right now is what, 1% or something like that, 1.5%.
Well, in the city, it's $4.50 per thousand.
$4.50 per $1,000. This is going to be right. So that's 0.5%. Ira.
Okay.
This is 4.5% and 5%. That's about 10 times more than what it used to be.
Okay,
And believe me, that will become a consideration for a lot of holders. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for the information. It's always very important and valuable.